All right. Well, you know what? Let's kick this thing off. Thank you all for joining. I'm sure there'll be people piling in as we go along. I'm Stefan Bajayo, Chief Evangelist, co-founder of Conductor. Thank you so much for joining us on Search from Home, as usual. My co-host, in this case, well, on my screen down here, he's probably going to tell me there you go. See, we're getting used to this now. Patrick Reinhardt and Ian Lurie, amazing guest from out west. Thank you so much for waking up early with us. Thanks, Ian. How are you?
I'm good. It's not early for me. Don't worry.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I talked to Rand and he's like, dude, you're the only one I'm getting up for before 10 a.m. on a Zoom meeting.
Rand is not a morning.
No, he made me feel like I'm the luckiest man. I'm like, all right, dude, I'll take it.
He is not a morning person. Whenever we play Dungeons and Dragons, it's funny because I'm like, oh, we should start at 10 a.m. And he's like, no, we're not starting at 10.
Yeah. No. I got the dude. I'm a night owl and I don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, I'm working on 5 hours a night. I get it. Plus, we all look like this. It's okay. I mean, picture of himself from like when I first met him, when he had like lots of hair, and I mean that in a nice way, not in the before he got super stylish with his dues and stuff. Yeah. And so now I'm sure without a barber accessible, if Geraldine is not doing his thing, which I don't know if she is, or
she did. she did. You can see the results on Instagram. It went pretty well, really.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna have to watch that before Friday.
Me, on the other hand, my eyebrows are so long they're holding my glasses up, so I badly need to over so I can go get a haircut. But yeah,
Ian, it's
this
great.
Is becoming like one of the biggest problems for people right now. The haircut thing.
Getting
like
a haircut.
All my friends,
I know.
What are you doing about haircut? I'm like, I'm just wearing this hat every day, man.
Exactly. That's why I'm wearing the headphones. That's why I just wear them everywhere, actually.
Yeah, I've come to start wearing a hat, and I've gotten super lazy. I know I'll run out of contacts at some point, so I'm just wearing my glasses all the time. So it's just been like a thing. But Ian, thank you so much for joining us. For those who don't know you, let's do a quick introduction so they get a little background on you and kind of where you come from, what's with you, or who you are. I will just say I've seen Ian speak a bunch of times. We've actually been on similar stages, or actually we were in an MN search we were on at the same time, which of course makes my room very small because everyone goes and listens to him. But rightfully so. He's an amazing technical SEO, has great background, and he's an awesome storyteller. If you happen to go to MozCon one year that I forwent drinking one night, I went to Ignite, which was a very cool thing where marketers actually talk about non-marketing issues. Mm-hmm. I won't let Ian do it here because it's too good to be shortened, but he did an insanely amazing job of telling a story about raccoons in his home, which was hands down one of the best stories I think I've ever heard, and I still remember to this day. So with that, I'll let Ian introduce himself, and then we'll get down into it.
Hi, so I'm Ian Lurie, but everybody sort of knows that at this point. That sounded really presumptuous. I mean that Stefan introduced me, so you know who I am at this point. I started a marketing agency called Portent in 1995 and ran it in full service digital, about 60% SEO, 40% everything else. Sold it in 2017. My buyout was done last summer, and I went out on my own, and I am now doing my own kind of small digital marketing consultancy. It's very different. It's really interesting to not have employees suddenly to sort of, pawn stuff off on. I am a cyclist, if you're going non-marketing for a minute, and a longtime avid Dungeons and Dragons player, which if you ever heard me speak or seen me write, it pops up here and there. And right now I am shut in like everybody else with my 20-year-old college student son and my 17-year-old, almost 18-year-old daughter and my wife. And luckily we all like each other. Oh, and 2 cats and a dog. The cats and the dog are not thrilled, but they're always together. So it's all good. You will probably see the cat, one of the 2 cats, leap across the screen. Or as I said before, try to make me look like a Bond villain at some point. I think momentarily, actually, if I'm looking over here, right? So that's the very short story. If you ever want to hear my Ignite presentation, it's 13 Raccoons in the Kitchen. If you do a Google search on that, you can find the written version somewhere.
We'll be sure to, so we have a LinkedIn group. We'll be sure to actually share it in there. Ian, I think I invited you in there. I'm not sure. If I haven't, then I will invite you. If I did, then damn it, man, get in there. We'll drop it in there as well as the recording of this later. So look forward to seeing that. I'm so glad it was recorded because I was worried it wasn't. And I'm like, that was too epic a story and your delivery was too good not to have.
I didn't know there was a recording. I honestly didn't know. So please, send me that, will you?
Oh, there is a recording of it, or you just wrote it, you mean?
No, I wrote it.
Oh, damn it. Okay, see, I thought there was a recording of it. No. That's why I thought you were telling us there's a video of it, and I'm like, he delivered it so damn well.
Oh, I was so excited too. Oh, well.
Sorry, dude. Sorry. We will, you know what we'll do? We will take some time in the next 2 weeks, and I think you should just do it on this camera. Your camera's too. By the way, his setup is badass, so we should probably get into how he sets up his home situation out in Seattle. So, we should definitely do that. And then I think we should record it. I'd be more than happy to have our folks cut it up, and it won't be the same as you walking across the stage. It's not the same gravitas, but
it's not quite
it's still your delivery of it was awesome. I'll make sure the text version of it is shared with everyone out there. It was phenomenal.
I lived a lot in those 5 minutes. So,
so did we vicariously through you.
It's a good one.
So, so let's start. I mean, you're in Seattle, right?
Yeah.
The first epicenter of COVID.
Yes.
What's that been like?
It was really scary for quite a while. I mean, my daughter's in high school here, and it went from kind of scary to sort of nervous, and then everybody sort of shut in, which, I mean, I'm making light of it, but I shouldn't. But I'm emotionally and temperamentally suited to the apocalypse because I'm a hermit who's perpetually anxious about everything anyway. Once my kids were not at school any longer and it was clear none of us were getting sick, it was, sort of settled into a routine. Now it's kind of sad because we just realized that my daughter is not going to have a graduation. She's a senior. She's not going to have prom. She may not see her teachers again until she goes to college. And we're all aware she'll get to see most of her friends again, but it's just not quite the same. So realities like that, little things are starting to kind of come home. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I'm sort of saying it for folks who have not had some of this hit yet. Just kind of brace yourselves for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting because a lot of folks who are graduating from college is the same thing. They're not going to have graduation. They were also losing out on the last semester of college. Which really sucks. Like I hear you on that. Because I've heard I have a couple of cousins who are really down in the dumps right now because basically they got robbed of their last semester of college.
On the other hand, I have family members who live in New York City, so that kind of brings it all into perspective.
And that's where I am. So
okay.
I 100%, but I still get it. And I think it's like, the Seattle thing must have been scary in that you guys were the first to face it. So just the uncertainty of kind of everything going on, I'm assuming that also played like a major nerve factor in like, hey, this doesn't seem to be happening anywhere else. What the hell's going on here?
It was a little scary. I think a lot of folks here are aware that we're not a particularly big or dense city. So, there was a brief period when everybody was truly freaked out. But then as you kind of realize, I don't want to come off as insensitive. I hope it's not. But once we rapidly realized that it was easier to manage social distancing here than in, say, a city as large as New York.
Sure.
We started to feel like things were getting under control. It was still scary because our medical care system is not very large. It would have been, it could have gotten very ugly very quickly. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's definitely some advantages to having a more spread out space than being on top of each other as we are here in New York City.
Yeah.
So completely feel that. And I definitely feel for your kids too. I think, Pat, I mean, must be rough missing the last semester of college. Well, not that anyone did any work in the last semester of college. Let's be frank.
That's my point.
But they're not exactly going.
No, that's right.
No, I get it. You're missing the good partying. The problem is you're about to go into a really shitty work, like a job market, right? So it's like, this does remind me of 2008, which is kind of where I wanted to start off with Ian. I mean, you grew an agency. Give us a little more background. So you started in 95 with Portent, and how did that evolve? Like, what was your background in starting it? Because I think there's probably in this time, let's back up. In this time, there's going to be a lot of entrepreneurship. I believe that there's just, we've been forced into recognizing you could have done this at home. All the people who've never done it at home now realize I can do it at home. And some people are going to go, you know what? Go scratch. I'm not coming back. I'm doing my own thing. As long as I can get my hands on some clients, I'm going to build my own agency. And you know what? I have a bunch of friends who don't want to go back in an office either. So I'm taking them with me, and let's go do this thing, right? Very different than I think when there's just an economic downturn and people decide, okay, I'm still going to take a risk. It's more of, I guess, a calculated risk in this case. So how did you find yourself starting off a digital agency, and then how the heck did you kind of meander your way through it?
It is a meander. So I have a history degree. I went to law school as soon as I graduated from college, because if you have a history degree, you really got only a couple choices. You can go teach and make no money, or you can go to law school. I loved law school so much, I became a marketer the day I graduated.
Nice.
It was truly just not for me. So I graduated barely, went into marketing copy and technical writing, both at the same time. Started an agency in 95 that was actually called The Written Word at first, because it was so focused on writing. And partway through 95, realized there was this internet thing, started writing there, and realized I could do marketing on the internet, and that was it. I mean, I was totally in love. I just, I grew up in a household with two PhD scientist parents. So computers, like back in the 70s, I had a TRS-80 and a Heathkit computer sitting on my desk. So, computers were not even, I didn't even consider them something you studied. They were just there. You just used them. So that was pretty easy. So you put all that together, and we turned into a digital marketing agency pretty quickly. I actually sold the agency in 99 and bought it back in the year 2000. Just never sell your agency to a company named after a carnivorous fish. That's all I can say. And I will leave it at that. People who work there now are probably, flipping me off, but sorry guys. They weren't even born when this all happened. And we were pretty successful. We were doing well. And then the dot-com crash hit, and that hit us pretty hard. We were only 5 or 6 people. Then 9/11 hit right after that. Then we started growing steadily again. Got more completely into the marketing side and advertising side of digital, and out of the site building side. Still built sites back then, but not as much. Started doing a lot of paid search and organic. That is awesome. I just want to say that is awesome. He's adorable, by the way.
For context, Merch's son just jumped into the into the view. So
and he
the recording that's not on there. Like,
yeah,
that's awesome, but we have no clue what he's talking about.
Yeah, no, sorry.
All good.
Those are great PJs. It kind of evolved Portent more and more towards paid and organic search. And I just have to point out, everyone looks at me as an SEO, but my real background is in marketing and advertising. SEO is definitely one of my true passions. I love it. It's really fun. I love the problem solving. But Portent really grew up as a full service agency. 2008 hit. Our bank saw fit to cancel our line of credit right when the economy was crashing.
That's always fun.
We did better. Then I made the mistake of hiring a CEO. And I will say to that person, I don't mean that you were a mistake. I just mean it was not the right move at the time. That almost killed us. That came closer to driving Portent under than any other crisis we've ever had. And then from there, we grew steadily again. And I think that was actually when truly, after 20 years, we really started to hit our stride, because it gave me some confidence. I saw that I was capable of doing the job. I know it sounds crazy. It took that long.
No, I was going to say, that's how all overnight successes happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I always love that. I always love that idea of the overnight success. Yeah.
Yes, overnight success. Overnight, something did officially happen that you guys found out about. It just took me 20 years to get to that night.
And kind of grew from there. And like I said, sold in 2017. I left last year because it was just time to do something different. I had the same job for 25 years. But so, if we're talking about crises, and stop me if I'm taking this in the wrong direction.
No, there's no wrong direction, man. Let's do it. Let's learn. What have you learned?
The biggest thing is no two shitstorms are the same. 9/11 was tragic and a lot of people died, but this is the first time that every single person we worked with was facing some kind of threat. And every single one of us was going to be impacted by someone getting sick. Just numerically, there's no way to avoid that. So, no two of them are the same. In 2000, everybody was afraid for their livelihoods. In 2001, no one knew quite what to make of it. I didn't know that many people who were directly personally impacted, but obviously everybody, it kind of shook everybody to the core. 2008, nobody knew it was going to happen. It was frustrating and aggravating, and everybody was angry that it had happened. 2012 was obviously very small. It was just us. This is the first time, that, this is a once in 100-year occurrence that we're facing right now. So
I hope,
okay. I mean, it could be multiple years, don't get me wrong, but this is not something that happens, multiple times every generation. So, there's certain lessons taken each time, but the biggest one is no two of these are the same. And you really have to be pretty flexible. There is no playbook. There is no crisis management playbook for running an organization when something bad happens. There's a set of behaviors you want to model for everyone around you, and I think that's the better way to look at it.
What do you think those behaviors are?
The first one is, don't make promises you can't keep. The right thing to say is we're all in this together and we're going to get through this. What you don't ever say is we're all going to be here when it's done. That doesn't mean you say half of you are going to be fired. You don't have to say that, but you definitely say, look, this is scary. This is a challenge. We are in this together. I'm going to face this with all of you. But if at the moment you make a promise, like no one's going to take a pay cut or, something like that, is the moment you make a promise that you may have to break.
Mm-hmm. So establishing that trust, I mean, first and foremost, right, is fundamental, because everything after that is going to pivot based on the trust that's been established.
And because no two shit shows are the same. And, in 2001, everything hit and then it was over within, 6 months, and the economy was not great, but it was getting back on track. 2008, I mean, everyone lost their credit. There was no coming back from that. I mean, that was catastrophic. And now, we don't even know. I mean, we're going to be living with this. This is our new reality for the duration. This is not going to change, which means, the economy, we've just had the biggest economic hit since the Great Depression. I mean, how do you even get your head around that? So don't make promises you can't keep, because then the worst case is you come out ahead. Do keep the promises you make. Whatever you promise, you better be ready to live by it. Like if you say, I'm taking a pay cut, you better take that pay cut. You can't change your mind later, and you can't sneak around it. And find ways to still extract money from your company. I think those are important lessons. I think another important one, obviously transparency, everybody talks about that. If you tell the truth and are transparent, it is much easier than trying to fudge the truth and hiding stuff, because then every time you say something, you have to figure out whether you're saying the thing that you said you were going to, sticking to the script. The best way to stick to the script is not have a script and just set those simple rules. And then the last one, though, is, you do have to maintain some kind of discipline. The work is part of what keeps morale high. If someone in your organization does not find the work to be something that keeps morale high, they will go find their own thing to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But this is not a vacation, not in a work sense, not in a life sense. I mean, everyone's facing these incredible challenges right now. It's scary in different ways for everyone, or it's sad in different ways for everyone. The one constant is if people like what they're doing. And if they like what they're doing, they should get to keep doing it. And if you lose half your clients, you find other work to do. But you make sure everyone has a chance to practice their craft. That holds things together in a way that I don't think anything else will. In 2008 and in 2012, that was probably what saved the company. Is I am pretty obsessed with the work. I mean, yeah, I'm a CEO, and I've learned to be a leader, and all the, a leader, quote unquote, and everybody's a little different. But in the end, the thing I think that kept us going was, look, we've got this great work. We still have clients. We're going to serve them. And oh, by the way, like in 2008, we built 3 websites for ourselves. Those websites never made a dime, but they were really fun to operate. One was about crafting with glue guns. It was the best thing. Another one was a chocolate tasting website. They were totally fun. They were great. And it was a chance to kind of do some of our writing and do some of our marketing and play with stuff and test stuff. So just maintaining some kind of discipline around the work, I think, is really helpful too.
I love that. I mean, all great points, Ian. And when I think about some of the last point specifically, I think this is a really, I'll caveat both of them together. One, or I'll tie them both together, I should say. One, I think that the, dare I say, the hobby of the love that we have for this industry, or even just to tinker, right? It's funny. A tie that binds a lot of people in search, I have found. Gearheads. So you will have people who love messing around with cars. I don't know why, but it's like a thing. Mm-hmm. It's like tinkerers. Or people that just like mechanics. They will take apart a toaster when they were a kid, and that's just their thing. I need to understand how it worked, and it's like forensics, right? So, you've got that side, and then you've got like the creativity side of the musicians, like Reinhardt. You can find him on Spotify, dare I tell people. Toured with a band, lived out of a van. So many people at Conductor on our professional services SEO team are amazing musicians, just like something about tinkering and playing, right? So the idea of you've got a passion. If you don't channel the passion doesn't die, but you're not living your true self, right? You're not allowing yourself to get that out. And it's something that's fundamental. And now in a time where, like I've been saying, Saturday looks just like Friday, which looks just like Monday, finding the time and devoting the time to doing those things, even if they're just another version of what you were doing anyway, but just for a different reason, sometimes is enough. Whether it's chocolate tasting just because you really like that, or it's like messing around with glue guns that I've never even thought about. Like, okay, all the crazy stuff you could probably do with a glue gun. Or I think our modernized version of that, not to say that's too old school, would be Flex Seal. Have you guys seen that stuff? Mm-hmm. Commercials for that, and now they've got like a paste for it or whatever else. I mean, yeah, if I had my old house where I actually could mess around with stuff, I would 100% be doing videos on the weird stuff you could do with Flex Seal and trying to disprove the idea that you could be in a boat with this, with a totally bottom. Plausible. Yeah.
Totally
like,
yeah.
I used to the door and made the bottom of a boat out of it. Yeah, nothing can go wrong here. Crocodiles.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So I think Ian, I think one of the other good points that you meant is, the communication aspect of it. It's good to be, transparent, right? It's good to tell people what's going on, to make, if you make a promise, you better keep that promise. But I think where a lot of people also, kind of get in, especially in times like this, is, how transparent do you be? Because you want to be responsibly transparent. You know what I mean? You really don't want to tell everyone every detail about what's going on, because that would just freak everyone out. So I think it's a balance there.
How do you strike that balance, Ian?
I was just about to say, as soon as you said that, I was like, transparent, but don't show everyone a spreadsheet of your books. Okay. Yeah. It's not about hiding the ball. It's just, that's useless information. The useful information is, our profit margin has narrowed. We have lost 5 clients. For the next 3 months, we're in a mode of making sure we spend less than we bring in. That is where we are at. You don't have to go in though and say, we were making $2.3 million last month. We have lost $2 million in revenue this month. Therefore, we have $300,000 in revenue. I am paying you all $1 million a month in salaries. Therefore, $700,000 worth of you are screwed. And that's part of transparency is, you do have to be careful. You don't want to overshare. You want to be very careful about sharing useless versus useful information. Here comes Romulus. I'm just going to introduce Romulus to everybody. Speaking of transparency, that's Romulus. He's happy right now in spite of the look on his face.
Oh, that's a happy face?
Yeah, he is happy. He is happy.
Merch, I told Ian before, Merch's cat's butts drives us nuts because he's always on the table, kind of like, doing his cameo appearance.
T-shirt. That's the next T-shirt.
What's that? That's the next T-shirt? I love it. I can't wait.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into the T-shirt business by the time this pandemic is done, I'm sure. So
there you go.
We got to keep a running tab of all these T-shirts we have to make.
So
we're the only ones that are going to buy them, but that's going to be our pet project. To Ian's point, we're opening up a T-shirt company.
There you go. There you go.
We'll see what we can do.
I do think part of transparency also is being reasonably transparent about how you're feeling at that moment, but being careful about that too. Like, I've never stood up in front of my company and said, I'm terrified. Because the truth is, I'm terrified on a weekly basis. So really, what good would that do? But, you can get up and say, look, yeah, you know what? I'm concerned. We are all going to get through this. But of course, I'm concerned. And I'm concerned about you, and I'm concerned about me. And I want to make sure that we all, are kept as whole as possible. I think it's okay to say that. It's not okay to say, we're all going to die. We're all hosed. Business is going under. Go home.
Yeah, you don't want to sound like unrealistic. You know what I mean? Yes. Like you need to show that you have a grip on reality and that you do have a point and that you are human and that I'm worried, but you can't get up in front of everyone being like,
the thing I used to say, and I always meant it, is look, we're an amazing team. We're one of the best teams in the industry. If we can't get through this, we got bigger problems than us not getting through this. We got bigger problems than our company struggling a little bit. And one thing I have done at times is sat down with team leaders and outlined choices to them that see, Romulus is looking at me adoringly right now, is, being very honest with them about the choices that we're facing and trusting them to not go to their teams and say inappropriate things, because if they do that, then they're not the team leads that I want, which has also come up. Transparency has limits. It's a powerful tool, and that sounds really cynical, but it is, and you have to see it for what it is. But it's also just the right way to do things. And often I find in crises, the right way to do things is the best tool. So you have to think about what's going to scare people uselessly and what's going to keep people realistic. You don't want to see 52 resumes printing out on your printer after you have a meeting with your team about a crisis, but you also don't want to see people going out and buying new cars. And somewhere in between, and somewhere in between is what you want. And again, I can't tell you how transparent you should be, because no two crises are the same. So you have to. I wish I had better advice there, except you have to be very judiciously transparent, I think is the way to put it.
Yeah, I think it's a balance between, if we were to surmise that, it's a balance between stoicism and vulnerability, right? And you have to be stoic enough for your people to trust you and say, he or she's got this, right? But not stoic to the point that you seem obtuse or checked out or unaware of the danger and the risk that they might be feeling, right? And that balance is like the most, I think, difficult but also fundamental thing of leadership, is show too much of one and you'll see a response in one way. Show too much of the other and you'll definitely see a response the other way as well.
We don't live and work in an Ayn Rand novel, right? So you can't be completely insensitive to the emotional needs of your team. On the other hand, we also aren't the Wolf of Wall Street, so we can't just talk about, the glory and the martinis and the wild parties. So I think one good example I can give is, I would not show everyone a spreadsheet of exactly what we spend. Thinking about, even if the spreadsheet is completely encouraging and comforting, at a minimum, people are going to see how much money is paid out in salaries, and then they do the math and realize that only 5% of the salary is coming, that budget is going to them or something like that. There's no good outcome there.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to be blindly optimistic. So often what I would do instead is I would get up there and say, look, this is our margin. This is how many clients we have. You all know we lost this one client. There's no point in me trying to gloss over that. You all know about how much this client paid us per month. Here's what we are going to do to manage that. Here are the changes I'm planning on making. And again, don't make promises you can't keep, and keep the ones you make. So if you say, look, we are all, including me, going to take a 10% pay cut. I talked to all of you individually, and you all decided that was better than laying off 10% of the team, which I appreciate. We are going to look at this again in a week and see how we're doing. I would be that transparent, which may be more than some folks would do.
Mm-hmm.
But I would not get up there and say, 5 of you will not be here in a week.
Yeah. I like adding to that. Just a thought from my perspective. I think adding to that, the idea of what can you do, like empowering people to know they can have some impact if they can, right? At a smaller company, and when I say smaller company, I mean, I'm even talking like Conductor size, which is like about 300 people globally. I'm not talking 1,000 plus. I'm not talking big enterprise companies, because at that point there's teams of teams of teams of teams, and people of people, and to make a ripple in that pond is super hard. I'd say stupid hard, actually.
Well, and controlling what happens when you make that ripple is impossible.
Also. And so I'd say like being able to enable the people who are hearing the message to recognize the actions they can take within the week to then feel like they're more in control. Like, listen, if it's your sales staff, then we need more opportunities. We need you guys to reach out more. We're empowered, not with stress, not with, if you don't bring me the leads, then you're the first one out the door. No, but hey guys, we have control over our future, our destiny. This is the beauty of being this type of company, because what you'll find is I feel, and I don't know if Ian, you agree, in a down market, people hide in large companies if they can, because they can find more safety there, or at least perceived safety. The problem with perceived safety is it's perceived.
You're not safe.
You're last in, first out, and
you're infinitely safer in a smaller company where the boss knows you all, and will fight to keep you and keep you paid and fed. But anyway, sorry.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. Actually, let's talk about that. I mean, how big was Portent, and then what have you seen while growing a company? Like, what were the struggles that you found in maintaining that culture and that relationship status? I mean, as you have direct reports, and your direct reports have direct reports, and again, that kind of, I hate to call it a pyramid because that sounds like a scheme, but as the business grows in that way, your connection to every single individual is just by manner of time. If you were to talk to everyone every day, you would do no work aside from talking to people. So how do you manage that? How did you manage that? Or what was give us a sense of how that kind of progressed over time?
I was terrible at it. I was not a good maintainer of culture. We kind of went like this in size. And I think in any organization, there are certain size points when the wheels come off or in danger of coming off. So,
what do you think those are?
To me, it's usually 8 people, 15 people, 25 people, and 50 people, because at each of those stages, you need an additional layer or additional human beings who are capable of managing other human beings in a way you can trust. When you're 8 people, you as an individual can still manage the team, have direct contact. You are the culture, right? Your personality still is the primary driver of the culture. When you hit 15 people, you cannot do that anymore. And if you don't select people and choose people who are good at carrying your message to the rest of the company, then it starts to come apart because people volunteer to do it anyway. At 25 people, everyone's aware that needs to be happening. So if you haven't picked good people, then they start to suck the morale out of the company. And at 50 people, it turns into total chaos if you don't have the right people. That was 2012 for us. Was it complete? We had a whole layer of management where there were people who they weren't up to the task yet. And that nearly yanked the wheels off the entire company because people were just so unhappy.
Was that more process issue or people issue? Because I
That
find
was
that
people.
managers,
People.
So managers can be strong in process,
That
or
was
people more like tech
people.
or exec, right?
Yeah.
So then, so what did you do? How do you deal with that?
Sorry, the traffic in my home.
All good.
That was a people issue, and it was a trust issue on my part. I tend to go to each end of the spectrum. Like, I trust people completely to do something, and then when it doesn't go right, it's very hard to get my trust back. So you had some instances, or I give people too much benefit of the doubt. So in this case, we had some folks who should not have gotten as much benefit of the doubt. And being nice, a lesson I finally learned in 2012 is being nice is not, to one person is probably being a complete, a very unkind person to your company as a whole. So giving people too many chances, I think, along the way means, if nothing else, if we're still talking about crises, you are not ready for a crisis because you don't have the team in place to handle it. But even without that, that's why the wheels come off. It's because I was still running a 50-person team the way I ran an 8-person team, or the way I ran a 15-person team, where I depended on the ability to sort of encourage and teach and cajole people into doing things in roles where they thought they should be, but maybe they weren't ready yet. And that dragged a lot of other people down with them. The culture that finally worked really well for us, and I think always worked, I just didn't realize it was a teaching culture, built very much around, you're here, honestly, we can't afford to pay you what the biggest companies in the world can pay you, but you're going to learn more here and enjoy it more than anywhere else. That was what finally worked. And then selecting for team leaders who were good at that. And then finding the one crucial team member who could run the place if you weren't there. Having that one person that completely transformed the agency. And that didn't happen until about 5 or 6 years ago. And that's someone who is now running Portent. So, that was the truly transformative moment. And I think when you hit 50 people, you have to have that person. Until then, having that good layer, the middle layer, and I don't mean, middle management in the office space way, but I mean, having a good layer, a good middle layer of leadership is enough and is great. But when you hit 50 people, you need to have that one person, because your job as a CEO, as a leader of an agency, is no longer running the day-to-day business. You cannot be handling P&Ls. You cannot be, which I was never good at anyway. You can't be doing stuff like that. You have to be full-time teaching and writing, and probably being the face of the agency to some extent, doing a great podcast every single day. How do you do that? You do like 3 or 4 of these a week?
Oh, we do 5.
Oh,
we're doing
God.
5. So yeah,
that is crazy.
I mean, listen, they're getting better. I mean, every day we're starting to understand what to do. I mean, we've shared with everyone, this is just grassroots stuff. This is not like our bread and butter. We're just, you've got a better camera than I do, man. And I can't even get a hold of diapers. So I don't think I can get a hold of a hide.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It also doesn't hurt that Stefan and I have basically been living with one another for 5 years, so we can talk to each other.
Yeah. And we did start our own. We did start our own little mini agency-ish, right, thing within Conductor's Pro Services. Yeah. So I mean, taking that from 4 people to 60 over the past 4.5 years was kind of an experience. And it was funny. I was smirking like a jackass, as I always do, but a little more than usual, because Pat was that to me, right? As I was building this team with him, I had a right hand and a left hand. And I've always, and Pat, that term, we've talked about it too much. Oh, yeah. I tell every manager, like, have a right hand and a left hand. Your right hand, you're not ambidextrous, and you need to recognize there's certain things that, like, in the case of Pat and Jesse on the team, who are my right and left hand, Pat and Jesse are very different people, and they're also very different in their skill sets, and one's better at one thing than another, and they complement each other when put together, and they can get a lot of stuff like typing when you put them down together, get a lot of great things accomplished. But on their own, they're you're, you know, great in one way and great in another, recognizing those people and then realizing that they also have something that you don't necessarily have. It's almost like there's a self-reflection point as a leader that I think you have to come to terms with, which is I'm not good at everything, right? And to your point about trust, Ian, it's like you just gotta freaking let go. And at some point, it's like when they say falling in love. Not this is completely work appropriate, guys. So Pat, don't go there. But you know, there's a falling that has to happen, right? You have to let go and know that you could fall on your face, you could get hurt. Your trust could be misplaced. I think the key to, and Ian, I think where I want to kind of follow up on your point about like sometimes giving too much and being like too giving of too many chances. And then on the other hand, sometimes, you know, like carrot or stick and not always using the same thing. How do you not thrash people so that they actually know what to expect? Because unfortunately, as we as leaders kind of learn that process out, because we're going through it many times for the first time or the second time or the third time, and it's not always the same, as you said, situations differ. How do you make sure that you have some level of sustainability in a way that people have an expectation and aren't like thrashed by, holy shit, is Ian having a bad day? That went completely unlike anything I've ever seen him do before. And that's just because you're going, man, I was too nice to the last two guys. I gotta flip the script on this one.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, I'm a pretty emotional person, so it was easy for Ian having a bad day to turn into something like that. And usually what I had to do is caution people and say, I'm having a really bad day. So just, you know, I'm not saying that to scare anyone. I'm saying that so you understand this is probably not about you right at this moment. I think the two big lessons though, for one thing being about you, is at some point you got to acknowledge it's not all about you, and making yourself feel better, because a lot of cases being nice to someone else is about making yourself feel better. My cat's now causing an earthquake as he walks by on my desk. It's just the cat. It's not. If I move the mouse around now, you're going to get like a cat face right in the camera. So I think understanding it's not all about you, understanding that that's not necessarily the right way to look at things, and that it can almost be emotionally lazy to be really, again, you're not being kind to someone if you fail to set clear expectations of them and hold them to those expectations. And this was something, again, I sucked at, I would say, until about 2012, 2013, when I had the right mentors around me. But you have to set really clear expectations and you have to hold people to them. And if they don't meet those expectations, you know, maybe you don't fire them right then and there, but it has to be clearly communicated to them. You did not meet my expectations on this.
We have a no surprises policy that we try to abide by. Don't if someone is surprised by a situation, it's not their fault, it's yours.
No, that's a really good way of putting it, is no surprises. You know, clear job descriptions, holy cow, that is the most important thing. I cannot say that enough. If you do nothing else running an agency, if you want to be positioned for a crisis better than anyone else, have very clear job descriptions. And I don't mean, you know, MBA desired, 25 years programming computers, great. You know, being born actually writing code would be exceptional, thank you very much. Having run a Fortune 500 company for 10 years so you can come to my company and write HTML, that'd be great. Sorry, I'm ranting, but I think most job descriptions are complete bull. A clear job description that sets expectations, saying, you know, this is the type of emotional intelligence I'm looking for. These are the emotional skills you need to have. These are the professional skills. You will be expected to make these kinds of decisions day to day. You will report to this person. A really good thing that I learned, I can't remember where, but is the idea of root, trunk, branch. So you are a branch reporter, meaning you report to, you know, directly to a manager who is responsible for day-to-day decisions for your team. You're a trunk report, meaning you're reporting to someone who's making day-to-day financial decisions and other decisions for your team. You're a root report, meaning you report directly to people whose decisions affect the entire business. You know, those kinds of expectations, I think, are the right ones to set, and set them clearly and then hold people to them. And if they aren't meeting them, have a process and a system for handling that.
I love that. I think that's the interesting part about that, especially, is the idea that, like, I like how you position the job description to be more about the person than the actual job itself, because I think that's where job descriptions fall down all the time. I don't do windows, I don't do drapes. That's nonsense. If we end up having nothing but drapes and windows to do, we're going to do them, right? Like, we're not building that kind of an environment. We're not, again, it's not I came from a Yahoo world or a Time Inc. world where you literally have specialist in drapes and specialist in floors. And like, we don't do that. Like, we have to be, it's not, my job is not a response we ever want. It's not the empathy and the team dynamic where I think anyone is looking for, right? And that's not to say, like, hey, we want you to do everything and screw you, do 5 jobs and I'll pay you half of one salary. But,
or saying, okay, SEO, you now need to be a financial manager. You're never going to do that to someone. But yeah.
But like, I think we just need to recognize that, it's the job description is more of a person description. It's more like you're describing the individual that would thrive in the job. You're giving some dotted line boundaries as to what they may be working on. But if you were only to be kept, and I think this is also for the user, so the person receiving the job description itself and having to fulfill against it, I've always said to people, even especially in job interviews, if this is literally your job and you only live within your job description, then your comfort zone would stay within that spot. And while that might make you extremely comfortable, it would never really make you grow. And unless you're able to go outside of those boundaries, and again, where my whiteboard skills would kind of help, or lack thereof, my hieroglyphics, if you were able to venture outside of the circle that was originally created for you in your original role, you'd start to realize there's more and more things you are actually good at, and that circle's diameter starts to grow.
Hey, I'd just like to add something here for you guys. So I think what's really important for anyone here, like creating their own agency, or like doing something new like this and growing, and everyone here seems to be, way more technical skill set, really specifically around, SEO, around digital. It's the soft skills that are very hard to learn, hard to teach. And I'd say look for that counterpart with someone that has those great soft skills, because that's what changes culture within a company. When you have a counterpart that can be a, great listener, a great communicator, knows how to motivate others, speaks simply and clearly, right? These are the elements that starts to impact culture within a company and can deliver the message from a, technical CEO, or, you need to marry like with a partner, because you can't have everything, right? Great CEOs that have great empathy and great soft skills aren't going to have great technical abilities. They can look at P&Ls and understand EBITDA, and really understand, how to create a culture, but they're not going to get into the weeds in helping, create a plan, an SEO plan or campaign.
Well, or in my case,
that would be my big recommendation, is find that partner.
Well, or in my case, I think I had the technical and the emotional intelligence, but financial management, whatever, no. Not at all. I still can't read a P&L to save my life. I do think when you hire people, again, setting the expectation, like if you do hire a highly technical person, you should not necessarily set the expectation that they are going to have incredible emotional intelligence. The best examples I can think of is times that we've taken some of the smartest, most skilled developers and SEOs we've ever had and stuck them in front of clients. And what do you think is going to happen? Right. And they bring a ton to the organization. You're not going to fire someone like that. They're brilliant and they're a pleasure to work with, but you're also not going to park them in front of a client and say, hey, good luck.
You mean tech doesn't always transfer to exec? Yeah. It doesn't always translate. I know. Right, that's a good t-shirt there too, Merch. Write that one down.
Well, and actually, so separate thing is we always had 2 promotion tracks. Individual contributor and management. And one of the biggest, toughest communications we always had was, look, you can advance just as far. You can become a fellow, which is the top level of technical expertise, or you can become, a C-level executive, so that you're not forcing people with no emotional intelligence to do things that they're just going to hate, or even forcing people who don't want to manage a P&L, never mind emotional intelligence, to manage a P&L, or maybe they're super sensitive, smart, exceptional people and good leaders in ways. Oh my God, my cat. He weighs 16 pounds, by the way. So he's big. He's really big. He, you don't want to set unreasonable expectations. You just want to set expectations and make them clear, I think is the really short version of all that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. A lot of people believe the only way that they can move through a company is into people management. Because a lot of people think that an IC role is lesser than people management for some reason. And this is a challenge that we've come across over the years. Stefan and I definitely together. And it's a really interesting but hard conversation, and almost like a really hard point to make, that you are not going to be looked at as less of a person within the organization, or you're not going to get as less credit just because you don't want to manage people. Manage people is a completely different skill set than being able to pull down millions of rows of data, analyze it, and put a plan together. It's just two different skill sets. Both are valuable in very different ways, but it's interesting because you see a lot of people who probably should have gone down an IC path, go down a management path, just because everyone's kind of programmed to think, well, the only way that I can get better or get a better job is to manage people. And that's totally not true. There are plenty of IC jobs and opportunities in all companies that are just not more important.
Corporations
are just structure.
That's just the way that every corporation, it's like the 1980s, 1990s mentality of growing a business is still there. And I guess the worst is these people with a passion and a care for their craft, to Ian's point earlier, end up thinking, oh, it's managing here that's the problem. No, it might just be managing in general. Maybe it's not for you. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
That's no one is having that that lay down on my leather couch and let's have the conversation about maybe you weren't meant to be a manager, and that doesn't make you less of an earner or less valuable. In fact, your passion and your capability is here, and nobody can do that. You're the only one we know that can do that, and that makes you incredibly valuable. But it seems like if the numbers aren't huge, and I can't say I managed all these people and all this and all that, and they're skilled to doing that. Okay, let's not take that away from those who do it, but they're different skills. Yep. And that's fundamental. People need to recognize that, and I don't think we do a very good job in our culture of putting that across.
I may date myself here, but there was this book called The Peter Principle years ago, which was about people being promoted past their level of competence. And of course, the joke in that book was, oh, these people aren't capable of working beyond this level. But the truth of it is, no, they weren't suited to managing people at that level. They were suited to being experts at that level. And I've had people, the most difficult conversation I've had with people is, look, management is the only path for my career. And I'd ask why, and they say, well, I'm not gonna be able to get a job anywhere else. I'm not gonna be able to get a good job somewhere else if I'm not a manager. And my answer was always, and people would roll their eyes, if you go to an organization where the only way you can advance is by going into management, that is going to be a shit job, and you are going to hate it. And that is going to be an organization of managers who are mansplainers, no matter whether you're a man or a woman, who are pedantic, who are incompetent. I'm sorry, I'm being really harsh here.
No, it's fine.
And the organization is so top heavy that it collapses under its own weight. And there's one example. You can go from GM down to the smallest development companies I've worked with, and you can find examples where they've gone through that in their history. Heck, I did it at Portent. 2012, that was what happened. So
yeah, I think that's huge, Ian. And I know we're running up on time here, so I first and foremost have to thank you, because I think the lessons you've shared today have been really invaluable. Your perspective is phenomenal. I think it's one that so many of us can learn from. I know I learned a lot today, and it made me reflect on a lot of different things regarding managing, regarding growing a company, thinking about how to grow a company effectively, thinking about my flaws. I don't know if everyone else is doing that, but to your point, your last point, listen, if there isn't one thing we've learned from thus far from COVID, and I'll say this sitting in New York City, and not to be too brash about it, life's short. Okay. If you're doing a job that you freaking hate, it's too short to be doing it. We've all just realized you can work from home You can get shit done here. You can have valuable discussions with great, amazing people like Ian and others. You can learn from one another. There's infinite amount of data out there. It's really up to you to decide whether or not that's something you want to continue doing in the same fashion and function that you've done up until now, or the new world, as we're calling it, whatever the heck that looks like afterwards, and we still don't know. There's a lot of opportunity to take risks that can now be a little more calculated. And while they're still bold in their outcomes potentially, I think there's a lot of potential to learn from great mentors, find mentors. I'm pointing at both of you guys. So I got Michael Burr on one side, and I've got Michael Brew on one side. I got Ian on the other. There's a lot of people finding your left and right hands and figuring out how to trust and how to emotionally evolve as a leader, I think is fundamental too. So really, really appreciate everyone taking the time today to join us. Ian, thank you so much. Your insights, amazing, dude. Love to have you back on. We're here every day. Join us, chime in. We love having people here. Thank you guys all for joining us. Tomorrow we have the infamous and very locally accessible, at least in some ways, Greg Gifford, who will be getting into local SEO with us. Since he's not speaking at 500 conferences this year, we've corralled him and gotten that. And Friday we'll have our good friend, but possibly sleepy, Rand Fishkin on the show at 9 a.m. his time. So 12 p.m. Eastern Standard. Join us. As I always say, please stay home, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay sane. So we will see you next time. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks everyone.
Everybody.